Yeah, so we are going to use this machine. It's called Ramen 1, and yeah, you guys get it right. And so these are the ingredients, and so wheat flour, like ramen flour, and you guys would be amazed, like how many brands like ramen flour we have in Japan. And this is water, and this is gluten. This is a gluten like extracted, like gluten, like pure gluten, and the salt and kansi. So these are these three are like liquid ingredients, and then these are the solid ingredients we are talking about. Okay, so the gluten in the wheat flour, and yeah, so it's a mixer, right? And so this mixer was 10 kilograms mixer, 10 kilo. So you can mix up to like 10 kilograms of solid ingredients, and on top of it you can add your liquid, right? But the minimum is 4, so we're doing 4 kilogram batch, and so we need to make sure that all these kansi and salt are dissolved in water thoroughly, right? And this is low hydration noodle, and low hydration noodle means, well, yes, the amount of like liquid that we add to the flour is low in percentage, and so it's like between like 24% and 29%. Like, so 25% means 25% to the weight of flour. So that's like if it's 10 kilograms of flour, that's 2.5 kilograms of liquid. And it takes like 15 minutes to mix it, so it's too long, right, for you guys to wait. So they can be made a batch in advance so that we can move on to the next process. And as you guys can see, right, like the dough is like still like really dry, and then like you guys can notice that like, the color is a bit yellow, a little bit yellow. This is from the potassium carbonate of calcium that we are talking about, and that makes that like white color of the flour to kind of like pale yellow, and it has like this distinctive like smell of kansi. And you see that it's very, very dry. It's almost like a powder. But we are forcing this dough into the set of rollers and to make a sheet of dough. And so it's very dry. So that means that it's hard, right? It's hard, and to make dough this hard to the sheet of dough, right? And then that takes a lot of power, right? A lot of power, the pressure. So yeah, that's why this machine is like designed for to be able to make these kind of noodles. So like hard and thin noodles. This one typically made for tonkotsu, like Hakata style ramen. Thin and hard. And but this is for vegan tonkotsu ramen. Like, does it sound right? So because it's vegan, usually for this noodle we add egg white, right? Egg white is white egg, right? And then to kind of add kind of waterproof sort of characteristics to it. So to imagine like egg white, right? Like being boiled, and well, it's kind of bouncy, and at the same time like kind of like keeps water from coming in, right? So it kind of like helps your noodles kind of retain its texture in hot soup, right? So that's why we put egg white powder in it, but like it's egg white is like of course like animal derived ingredients, or like it's almost like directly animal ingredients, so we can't use it. So instead of that, we used gluten. So gluten it helps like harden the noodle texture, and so in effect like we are like, sort of like helping noodles retain their hard texture in the hot soup. Okay, so first process we call like with rough foaming, and it's basically a rough sheet of dough. We made like a rough sheet of dough, right? And then we made it. And then what we are doing now is that like we are kind of combining, so separating a sheet of dough and into two sheets, right? And then like basically putting them together through the roller, right? And and then like these two separate sheets of dough gets sort of like compounded through the roller, and then this is how like we use this machine to sort of like work the dough. Work the dough to kind of develop like great ramen noodle texture. We want this kind of like really strong texture. So we are like kind of making the dough from like being fragile to firm and stronger. Yeah, so like putting two separate sheets into one through a set of roller, and it's a very narrow roller gap that these two sheets of dough are going through. Actually, like it's right now like it's 1.5 millimeter, and that's very narrow. And so there's a tremendous amount of pressure that's being applied, right, to these two sheets of dough right now. And so that's how we basically work the dough, like it's working the muscle, like kind of working out. It's kind of it's a kind of analogy, but like it's basically it. And we're strengthening it, the dough, and this particular type of ramen noodles like has like very distinctive kind of noodle texture, and it has like kind of springy texture to it. Like when you bite into the noodles, like the noodles kind of like burst like under your teeth. It kind of springs up, like kind of almost like making like popping sound like under your teeth or something. Because it's very hard and thin. So it's a very unique type of noodles that like you may not be able to like see like anywhere, like any other like noodle cuisines. And so that was first like combining process, and we are going for the second one. And this time around, like those sheets are going through kind of compounded, right, through a roller gap of like 2.0 millimeter. It's still pretty narrow gap. It's pretty narrow, and it's important that like we are going slow on purpose at this point, like at this process, right? Because we wanna make sure that the dough is like getting worked out, like we're applying the sufficient amount of pressure, like at this pace, slowly.
How many percent gluten?
Oh, okay. So someone asked like how many percent gluten like we add right for this noodle. That's 2%. 2% to the weight of flour. So well, first 4, right? Then that's 80 grams. 80 grams. Yeah. Usually usually like we add like maybe like 1% like egg white, 1% gluten, or like 1.5% egg white, 0.5% gluten or something like that. But like again, like this time around, like we are making noodles for vegan ramen, so you can't use the egg white. So we just we're just using the gluten. Okay, so after sticking and combining process, right? Like that the dough is complete, right? It's all like worked up, and then like it's got a lot of muscles, and like it's ready to go. So all we have to do is just thin it, right? Thin it to the final thickness, before we can cut into the noodles. Yeah. So, and from this point on, right? We can go faster. We can go faster because we've done our job like of like developing the gluten structure, so we can go faster. Yeah, but then we wanna kind of cherish. We want to like protect the gluten that's being developed, right? So rather like going, thinning like all at once, like we want to go like gradually thin it. Otherwise, like if you just thinning like probably from like let's say like 3 millimeter to like 1 millimeter or something like that. Oh, yeah, you take that. Oh. Yeah, then the gluten that we've like worked so hard to develop, right? It just like gets crushed, get damaged, right? That's not good for the noodle texture, right? So that's an important point. So now it's going through 1.0 millimeter roll gap. That's really narrow, right? Yeah, any kind of 1 millimeter. That's that's as thin as it's not as thin as a piece of paper, but like it's pretty thin. Yeah. But some of the tonkotsu ramen shops are like serving their noodles. They're like 1.3 millimeter to like 1.1 millimeter in thickness. So that's really thin, and and in a time like it takes these noodles to get soggy, soft, it's very fast, like hot soup, right? And then so that's why we want to put such ingredients like gluten and egg white, things like that, right? But we for this one, like again, like we can't put any eggs. So like there are a lot of. What's the difference between yellow alkaline and no noodles and ramen noodles? Someone asked like a question of like what is the difference between like yellow alkaline noodles and ramen noodles? I'm not sure like what yellow alkaline noodles are, but like if it's it's like noodles like they're contain like ramen noodles mean like like wheat flour and water and kanshi, right? As long as like the noodles have these 3 ingredients contained in them, then that's ramen noodles. That's actually a definition of ramen noodles. At least in Japan, right? At least in Japan. Japan is like where ramen was born, so I think we have the right to have the definition of ramen noodles. But like, but alkaline yeah, that's a good point though. Like, cause Kansi is basically alkaline in terms of like pH level. So when you are cooking ramen noodles, like cooking water gets alkaline from cooked noodles, right? So that even though like cooking water like start out with a neutral in pH level, it becomes alkaline over time. Okay, so after we cook the noodles, make it like, so actual thickness of the dough sheet, right? Is important. Like that was like 1.3 millimeter. When this dough gone through like after it's gone through the roller gap like 0.7 millimeter, so this dough expanded right after it's gone through the roller gap by 0.5 millimeter, and that's like what always happens to dough, and so we need to like expect this dough to bounce back right after it's gone through the roller gap and going to the cutter by 0.5, right, 0.5 millimeter. So we need to set the roller gap accordingly to get the final thickness right. And so we use this kind of cutter, and that's now 26, and then that's 1.2 millimeter in width. So each groove that you guys saw is 1.2 millimeter in width, right? And then the thickness, right? Thickness we aim at is like 1.0 millimeter. So the cross-section noodles is going to be like thickness 1.0 millimeter and then width 1.2 millimeter. It's a bit rectangular, but that gives us like good noodle texture. So roller gap is set to 0.5 millimeter, and we're going to cutting. So let's go start cutting. All right, so now we have, beautiful noodles. And so usually, when you go to like tonkotsu specialty shop, right, like where this kind of noodles is like served, they have this system, right, like where you can actually choose the kind of how well like you want the noodles to be cooked, right, and then you can like choose like very very hard, normal, soft, like very soft and stuff like that. So like they change the cooking time, right? But for this noodle, a lot of people like prefer like very hard, and the cooking time will be like maybe like 20 seconds, like 10 seconds or something like that. And normally like they serve you like in a small portion, right? One portion like very small, because like these type of noodles like gets soft fast in hot soup, right? So they want you to finish eating this noodle like as soon as possible, like and while the noodles are still hard, like kind of texture they intended the noodle texture to be, then well, if you're hungry still, like if you want more noodles, then they encourage you to order additional noodles, and then so that's why like they kind of serve you the kind of small portion, like 90 grams, like 100 grams, something like that per serving, on purpose. And then so that's, and then but like they you can order like additional noodles, but like you're gonna have to like eat it like in the same soup though, but that's that's how they set up their system. And so, all right, so that's our vegan ramen noodles ready to go for this tonkotsu vegan ramen noodles. So let's go to our kitchen and